No, I can't hear anything. Folks, welcome everybody to episode 2 of our little YouTube Boxing Hall of Fame. I'm joined by, firstly, Scrapbook Boxing. Scrap, what's up, brother?
I'm good, Random. How you doing today?
Man, I'm chilling. I'm loving life. I'm off work. It's nice outside. And we also have the boxing librarian here with us. BL, how's everything going?
Fantastic. Yeah, I'm good. I've had a good day. And I've been looking forward to episode 2 of our Hall of Fame. I'm going to be a bit gloaty, guys. That will become one of the strongest Hall of Fames you can find. Pumping us up a little bit, guys, you don't mind. But yeah, great project that we've embarked on, and the first ever YouTube Hall of Fame. So yeah, I'm really excited to carry on where we left off. We added a great batch in first, and I'm sure there's going to be more great fighters added this time around.
Yeah, hopefully I spelled everyone's name correctly, but here was our first batch. Benny Leonard, Sam Langford, Barbados Walcott, Joe Gans, young Peter Jackson, Jack Blackburn, Sugar Ray Robinson, Tommy Loughran, Joe Louis, Johnny Dundee, Harry Greb, Hank Armstrong, Tony Canzoneri, Jimmy McLarnin, Maxie Rosenblum, Freddie Miller, Muhammad Ali, and Jack Johnson. What a batch. But folks, fear not. We have barely even scratched the surface of this incredible boxing history. We have, I think with the counting overlap, so we have 59 individuals. And I'm going to pull up the first slide. These were Scrapbook's nominations, but we all might have nominated these same people. We're trying not to overlap. So here we go. Scrap, if you want to introduce your nominees. Boom, there it is.
Okay, I have Harry Wells, the Brown Panther, Joe Jeanette, the Iron Man of West Hoboken, Sam McVeigh, the Oxnard Cyclone, Kid Gavilan, Kid Chocolate, Stanley Ketchel, Philadelphia Jack O'Brien, Jackie Kid Bird, Sammy Mendel, Ike Williams, Pancho Villa, Bo Jack, Mike Gibbons, Jeff Smith, who was the Bayonne Globetrotter, Panama Joe Gans, Jeff Clark, the Joplin Ghost, Holman Williams, Charlie Burley, and Archie Moore. Does anyone have any disagreements with anyone on this list?
For me, Scrap, that is a negative. I don't disagree with anyone on that list, no.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Those guys are a lock. To me, I don't know as much as you gentlemen, but from what I gather, all those guys are definitely worthy. We've not even begun to get to the point where we're bringing up fighters who maybe, I don't know if they did enough. These guys did enough, I believe.
Thank you, guys. Wonderful.
Scrap, yeah. Do you want? Oh, I'm sorry, but go ahead, brother.
No, I was just going to kick in, but yeah, if Scrap's going to narrate it a bit, I'll let Scrap do his great work and explain to folks a bit.
Okay. So Harry Wells, he was the Brown Panther. He was a 3-time colored heavyweight champion. He defended his title 25 times. He was tied with George Dixon, who was a 3-time featherweight world champion, and he defended his title 25 times. And Joe Louis, who was the 2nd black heavyweight champion, and he defended his title 25 times. So Harry Wells, in my opinion, should be worthy of this Hall of Fame. He was in a ring with Sam Langford 25 times, and I can't think of a better fighter to start this list off with. Joe Jeanette, the Iron Man of West Hoboken, another great fighter during his day. He started out as a bare knuckle, if you will, because he had challenged a fighter in the dare, some of the friend in the dare, in the bare knuckle, in the street, basically, fought him. And from that point, he has one of the greatest fights of all time with Sam McVeigh in 1909. So I had to put him in. Sam McVeigh, this complete opposite. He was completed, as Bill always says, he was the Mike Tyson of his day. Very powerful fighter. And he was part of the 1909 fight with Joe Jeanette. You have Kid Chocolate, another great fighter. He was a featherweight champion and a junior lightweight champion. Stanley Ketchel. Stanley Ketchel was the Michigan Assassin. Brutal fights with Billy Papke. He was in a ring with Jack Johnson. He was unfortunately killed in 1910 with a old drunken man, if you will, and his name was Walter Dipley. I'll go through that story another time. You had Sammy Mendel, another awesome fighter. He was an Italian fighter, but he passed as a Jewish fighter because he couldn't get fights during his time. You had Ike Williams, who was a lightweight champion from 1945 when he defeated a Mexican fighter in Mexico City. And that fighter is very underrated as well. He was from 1945 to 1951 when he lost to Jimmy Carter, Madison Square Garden. Kid Gavilan, another great fighter, May 18th for 51 till October 20th for 54. You had Pancho Villa, very good Filipino fighter. Last fight was with Jimmy McLaurin. But Pancho Villa was in there with Jimmy Wild, and he pretty much retired him. You have Jeff Smith, the Bayonne Globetrotter. They call him the Bayonne Globetrotter because he traveled around the world, fought almost 300 fights around the world several times. He was a master in the middleweight division. Panama Joe Gans, another fighter. He was managed by Leo P. Flynn. His stablemate was Kid Norfolk. You had Jeff Clark, the Joplin Ghost, Holman Williams, Charlie Burley, and Archie Moore, all Hall of Famers in my book, great fighters during their time, and that's why I selected these men.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, Scrap, I think that's a great list. And to listeners, I'd say Panama Joe Gans is a great shout, by the way. I think he's not as strong as some other guys in there, but a worthy Hall of Famer. When you look at those names on there, people who Scrap's nominated there, pretty much every one of them is a great fighter, matched against great fighters from any era. You've got the three heavyweight greats from Langford's time and Johnson's time, Wills, Jeanette, and McVeigh. You've got great fighters like Sammy Mandel, Ike Williams. These are some of the greatest lightweight fighters of all time. Jack O'Brien, who's just underrated terribly, regardless, by virtually everyone except me, Scrap, and some others. And, I also like as well another thing, because someone came to me the other day in a comment and said, well, it was under one of my videos about the Hall of Fame, funnily enough, about 4 or 5 days ago. And his comment said, how can you consider this guy a Hall of Famer? He wasn't even a world champion. And I'm like, well, when you understand boxing and you look at this list and see, Mike Gibbons, amongst others, Jeff Smith, who never were world champions, you can be a great fighter without being a world champion. I can pull great fighters out of my hair who never won a world title and are far greater than many other long-time world champions even. So yeah, that's a great list, Scrap. I must say I don't disagree with any of them at all.
Yeah, I won't add much, but what a phenomenal list of fighters. Great Brown Panther and the West Hoboken Iron Man and the Oxnard Cyclone. You got Wills, Jeanette, McVeigh. But also, excellent Panama Joe Gans and the Joplin Ghost, Jeff Clark. Good shout on Jeff Clark there. Great jabber mover, long arms, rangy fighter, but had a lot of stoppages, though. They could pile up. He wasn't a guy who couldn't get it done, but great jabber mover. Got a win over a prime Sam Langford. Like, Jeff Clark was something.
Yeah, good survivor as well in terms of defensive. When he fought Wills, he once fought a 20-round fight with Wills, and ringside reporters said he had to use every bit of skill he had to survive that fight. He managed to go 20 rounds, even though Wills were in ferocious form. It was during his absolute prime, and Wills were after destroying him like he was destroying everyone else. But Clark went the distance with him, and someone said that he wasn't throwing many punches, but somehow he was surviving. He was surviving, getting through the rounds. He was avoiding Wills's clean shots at chin, doing that cover up, tuck chin in, fight defensively, move, jab. Fantastic fighter. And Jeff Clark is one of those names who should be in the Hall and isn't. It's, to me, almost a travesty that a fighter like Jeff Clark doesn't get in the Hall. But Louis Angel Firpo does get in, simply because he was knocked down 7 times in 2 rounds. I mean, yes, it was a great battle. It's a legendary fight. But let's also face facts. Firpo was hammered down 7 times in first round. He didn't exactly, he knocked Dempsey down, flash, and then knocked him through ropes. But, if he gets into a Hall of Fame for that, because that's the only reason I've heard anybody say, other than he beat Jess Willard as well, then how can Jeff Clark not be a Hall of Famer with his record?
Well, so Buddy Bear knocked Joe Louis through the ropes. Tony Galento knocked Joe Louis down with a nice left hook. losing to an all-time great and doing well until you lose on its own doesn't get in. Now, someone like Jeff Clark, he also lost a lot at the Hall of Fame level, but he didn't only lose, and even some of those losses, just like when Sam Langford was past his prime, some of those fights with Harry Wills when Langford was way past it, he still gave a good account. Some of those fights are actually close, but that's not the basis for the greatness.
Beat fighters like Levinsky as well, who's a great light heavyweight. So, yeah, his record is way superior in every way to those.
And then we see the old mongoose. We see one of the greatest, probably the greatest old man, quote unquote, not disrespectfully, but the old man fighter of all time. Archie Moore was past his physical prime, at least, or his youth, when he won the title and kept it nearly 10 years and fought his way into contention at heavyweight. Incredible.
Yeah,
Archie Moore, really, to me, a top 10 all-time great. He's inside that top 10. You look at the resume and also the accomplishment, the resume, the technique, and the influence he had. He was hugely influential after his fight career as well as during it.
Archie Moore's in my top 10 of all time, and my criteria is real tough to get into my top 10 of all time on the automated range. You have got to have done amazingly well, and Archie Moore's in there. I think that speaks volumes because many great fighters don't get into my top 10, but he has. So, I think it's a great testament to him. And all those points you mentioned are totally valid and accurate.
Yeah. Oh, big up Ross in the chat, Bruce, Indian. Hey, is Moore the fighter with the least amount of professional fights in your top 10, BL?
No, because he had more than Tony Canzoneri.
He had more than Canzi. Okay.
Yeah.
Canzoneri. Yeah, he made it into our inaugural class. Big up, Ross. Hey, good to see you here, Andrew, Bruce. Nice to have you guys here. It's a pleasure. All the regulars, all the afters, everyone after the fact as well. You guys are all awesome. Thanks for joining us. Please give us feedback. We're not judgmental. Just always be respectful. Because I'm not a boxer. I'm a scrub in the gym. So these guys are all heavy duty. Even the fighters that maybe are not Hall of Famers, they're still heavy duty, man. Fighting's no joke. But let me just say also, Jack O'Brien, Scraps, one thing I like so much about this, it represents so many different versions of what boxing is. Because Jack O'Brien was Mr. 6 rounds. But his strength of competition in 6 rounders, which is a different kind of challenge in the smaller gloves of his day, is something else. And he just fought so many significant fighters, and he fought across racial lines. So he really did have an opportunity to fight everybody. There are guys who spent time, like Ketchel was drawing the color line when I think it was Willis Britt, Jimmy Britt's brother, was his manager. Then he got the fight with Johnson and changed his mind. And with Langford, he had hinted the money might change his mind. They did end up doing a 6 rounder. So Ketchel as well. Not everybody crossed the line. But like you said earlier, BL, about guys, wasn't it Packy McFarland, great fighter, fantastic record, never even got a title shot? Am I right in thinking that?
He never won a title. In fact, he very rarely even got a black eye. He was a great defensive fighter of his time. But even Packy McFarland, compared to some fighters in my database, his record doesn't stack up. He was a great defensive fighter. He has a great record with few defeats. But when you count his resume against a Canzoneri, I mean, they're in different universes. But to add one point before I let Scrap jump in, to add one major point before I let Scrap jump in, what you mentioned about 6 rounders random, you're right. A lot of people say someone like Jack O'Brien for fighting 6 rounders, saying, "Oh, he fought 6 rounders." So by that token, those same people who use that criticism, I know you don't, but in defense of Jack O'Brien, saying, "Oh, he should have fought more rounds." Okay, well, now a fighter then should fight 20 or 30 rounds like they used to. So using that same logic, because he fought shorter fights, meaning he's not as great, to people who use that argument, I say, well, then, every fighter now who fights 12 rounders is not a great fighter then, because fighters fought 20 or 30, so they're fighting too few rounds now.
Absolutely.
So I won't count him as a great fighter. You see, the logic is bizarre and crazy.
Right. He had over 175 fights. I can't remember exactly how many, but it was like, he did fight longer. He was booked for more than just 6 rounders, but a lot of his resume, he also met, and he kept a schedule. Like, is there anyone who's going to have 30, 10, or 12 round fights in a year?
No.
If he fights 30 times and keeps a very winning record, or in his best year was stunning, but several years he's fighting a lot. Later in his career, he did some longer fights, didn't have as busy a schedule, but he still fought tremendous competition. It's hard to, he was a serious guy. Like he had a claim at a weight. It depends on the way we count titles, but he was one of the claimants. And in some of the papers, they would count him as a champion. So it just depends.
He was counted as a champion.
Commission. Like the Europeans.
No, he was counted as a champion. He fought for a light heavyweight title and were recognised as light heavyweight champion.
Right, at 158, he had a claim at 158. Back when middleweight was 154.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. Yeah.
I think it might have been Catchell that was famous enough to pull it up to 158 as like more of the standard. But even he outgrew that and was fighting over. When Langford and Catchell were the top two best middleweights, there were questions in certain writers about whether either of them could actually make 158, let alone 154 that Fitz beating on Pearl Dempsey at. But anyway, I don't want to go on too many tangents, but I'm blown away by your list.
I absolutely love it. Jumping, actually. I think Scrapbook was trying to jump in.
Yeah, no, thank you. I just wanted to actually elaborate on what you guys were talking about with Philadelphia Jack O'Brien in 6 rounds. When he faced Sam Langford in 1911, that fight went 6 rounds. But 6 rounds is not a curse because back in the 1920s, the New York SAC didn't allow a 19-year-old to go past 6 rounds. When Ruby Goldstein had faced Sid Terrace at the New York Polo Grounds when they fought in the 1920s, that was a main event bout, but it only went 6 rounds because Sid Terrace was in that league of age to be a 10-round fighter. So you had a lot of great fights that were scheduled or went 6 rounds. So Philadelphia shouldn't get, or I should say Philadelphia Jack O'Brien shouldn't be cursed because of that. But I just wanted to say, I also wanted to say with Archie Moore, he's in there next to Holman Williams and Charlie Burley. He's the only fighter during that time of black fighters who fought all the members of the Black Murderers Row, and he had the most knockouts of them, 7, because he knew the science of boxing. So when I look at each fighter, I have to look at each detail of what, even if they don't have a certain record that others have, but each detail of what their best attributes are and how they handled it during the time that they came. So all these men, I pretty much took my time and took a look at everything that I can think about of greatness that they had within them. And that's how I came up with the names that I did. And I'm glad.
Yeah, it is a great bunch. It's a great bunch.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, BL.
Yeah, absolutely. So is there anyone else? Oh, and the Black Prince, Peter Jackson, some people were robbed of opportunity, but they were great. They were influential. They were powerful in the craft. They were celebrated in their time. Like the original Peter Jackson, because we inaugurated young Peter Jackson, Sim Tompkins, Joe Gann's training partner and corner. He got in our first class, but there's also the original Peter Jackson, and he, there were in the a couple generations after when they would show all the champions. Some of the graphics they would put him in there with all like the white champions, even though there was controversy about who did or didn't recognize different versions of different titles, because again, it's by acclaim. But so he was like. He's been celebrated as a champion, even by people who didn't recognize the colored champions. He was a great fighter, very influential.
He was an Australian heavyweight champion. He also won a British title. So, and he died at the age of 40, unfortunately, because of tuberculosis. But he was something else. And, he went 61 rounds with Corbett. He was a master boxer, gentlemen. He was a very good fighter, was Peter Jackson, the Black Prince.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you think we can always swing back through? Hold on a second. No silly comments. I don't even know if we got a few last time. They just disappear. Anyway, so BL, if you guys want, we can always circle back. But you want to pull up your epic list and go through it? Same machine gun style? Same way?
Yeah, go
yeah.
I can't wait. I love these lists you guys brought to the table. It's incredible. You ready for this, folks? Holy cow.
Oh yeah, this is my
wow.
This is my list now. I'm breaking convention because people say I'm an old schooler, but I've got the first few modern guys in. So my list is the legendary. I'll do mine this way. The legendary little Hebrew Abatel, who is the second longest reigning lineal featherweight champion of all time, had over 20 featherweight title fights, and has only been beaten, I believe, in title length by Johnny Kilbane, who, not surprisingly, also relieved his title. Okay, then we have the great lightweight fighter, Sammy Ango. I have long argued that Sammy Ango, who beat 8 Hall of Famers himself, ended Willie Pep's first 60-plus fight unbeaten run and was generally known as the Clutch, okay, because he was a very awkward fighter. He had a very difficult style to deal with for many fighters, very, very experienced ring veteran, and scored many great wins. And then we have Benny Bass, a fighter who gets plagued in a group, by one guy who keeps diminishing him. But I rank him as the greatest.
Oh, BL, did you cut out, or is that my signal?
You are, sorry? Can you hear me now?
I think I might have lost signal. Sorry, continue.
All right. Scrap, could you still hear me?
I hear you now, but you did blank out for a second, but you're back now.
All right, okay. Yeah, great stuff. So my next one is Jack Britton. Then we have a fighter that I've always argued, Emil Griffith. Then we have Evander, the real deal, Holyfield. Okay, he's the first of the modern fighters I've included. Then we have Pete Kid Herman, Rocky Kansas. Okay, Pete Kid Herman is one of my top 10 bantamweights of all time. Rocky Kansas is a very, very tough former lightweight champion, linear lightweight champion. Then we have another very underrated fighter, Luis Kid Kaplan, a featherweight champion who had a fantastic resume himself. From Luis Kid Kaplan, I am adding Floyd Mayweather Jr. in, okay? Floyd has many critics, okay, but the one thing that I won't allow to be criticised is his accomplishments, okay, as a multi-weight champion, a multiple-time now unified champion, and one of the most consistent world champions of all time, and an utter professional, okay, one of the sport's great professionals, dedicated professionals, because a lot of people talk about his flash and this and that, but he was in the gym for hours longer often than many other fighters would be willing to be, and he did that to maintain, in his mind, being the best. He doesn't very rarely get any credit for that. Then we've got another fighter, Sammy Mandel. Scrapbook mentioned him. To me, Mandela is one of the best lightweights of all time. Very underrated fighter. Like Scrapbook said, Italian originally. And, you know, a real great lightweight, of course, fought Jimmy McLarnin amongst many other fighters. Sammy Mandel, great lightweight. And then we have Billy Misk. As people know, I have long argued Billy Misk, a great heavyweight fighter, never captured a title, but mixed in great company, fighting Dempsey's, fighting Grebs, you know, on and on and on. He fought a who's who. He was an excellent heavyweight fighter, and to me, he's a worthy Hall of Famer. And then we get another fighter, Kid Norfolk. Okay, Kid Norfolk, I think, is a very, very underrated fighter indeed. Okay, one of the best light heavyweights of his era. Fought many of the coloured middleweight and light heavyweight champions around his time, captured the coloured light heavyweight title, you know, fought fighters like, you know, Tiger Flowers, and fought Harry Wills, and fought, you know, Sam Langford, and fought a who's who. You know, really, really tough fighter, Kid Norfolk. I always say, go watch footage on YouTube, a Kid Norfolk fighting Bill Tate, okay, because Bill Tate's like 6'6", 6'5", and when you watch the footage on YouTube, it's almost cartoonish. Kid Norfolk looks like his son. Okay, his 10-year-old son next to him, and there he is trying to fight him and throw combinations at him and trying to push him back and fight him on the inside, which is just shows what kind of fighter he was. Then we have Jeff Smith. Okay, Scrap mentioned him. He's a great all-time fighter. He'd be a worthy middleweight fighter in any period. And then we have another of my top 10 bantamweights, like Pete Kid Herman. Okay, Charles Bud Taylor, the Blonde Terror of Terre Haute, a fighter I've long argued is a worthy top 10 bantamweight of all time. Then we have the great toy bulldog, Mickey Walker. To me, Mickey Walker is the epitome of a great fighter. Multi-weight undisputed champion, multi-weight title challenger. Okay, also fought for a light heavyweight strap. Also became a top 10 heavyweight contender. Okay, as a former welterweight champion, he actually has a winning record against heavyweights. Yes, he lost to Smelling, but he fought a lot of heavyweights, has a winning record against them as a former welterweight champion, and he actually became a top 10 heavyweight contender. Unlike Roy Jones, who went up for the one fight against Ruiz, which was still a tough fight considering the weight and everything else and where Jones started from. But Mickey Walker didn't go up and have one fight in a flashy, big network fight. He fought a mini career at heavyweight, okay, which is a bit different, fighting many of the top 10 contenders of the time. And then also we have other names. Okay, we have after Mickey Walker, we have Freddie Welsh. Okay, the Welsh Wizard, the fighter I rate as the greatest Welsh fighter of all time in my ratings. And then we have a very underrated fighter, and Scrapbook spoke on him, the outstanding flyweight fighter who actually fought even up to featherweights. Stroke what would be super featherweight now. That is the great Midget Walgast, who in my current database has the second number of highest rated fights against rated opponents at over 90 in my database. He mixed in ridiculous company. And the final two names, okay, Scrapbook brought one of them up. He's my third greatest lightweight of all time. He's the fast, hard punching and very powerful former lightweight champion, Ike Williams, who is just a pure all-time great. And then my final name is former featherweight champion, okay, who goes a bit underrated. To me, he started as a bit more rough piece of coal, and then as he gained experience, he smoothed off, became one of the best featherweights of his era. That is Chalky Wright. That sums up my additions for this batch. I would like to add, so I don't know if we've actually told listeners, actually, that we're doing it a bit different. Does someone want to mention that? Or I've just realised I don't think we've told anybody why we've changed it. We're so eager to get stuck in. But yeah, there's my list. It's a mix of old. It's got the first new fighters in there. Floyd Mayweather, Evander Holyfield. There'll be more modern era fighters to come on our lists in the future, for sure. But yeah, that's my 20 for this time.
Great list. Scrap? Want to add,
Great
I'm sure.
list. Oh, great list. I have absolutely no reason to doubt any of the selections that BL had made. The great list. I mean, Evander Holyfield, 4-time heavyweight champion. I mean, everybody I'm looking at here has a reason. Look, Mickey Walker, when he fought Jack Sharkey, went to a draw as heavyweight. And then 2 months later, I think Jack Dempsey,
Sorry, Scrap, you've just broke up.
on here. So, I mean, an incredible list. My God, great job, BL. Great job. Fantastic.
Yeah, thank you, Scrap.
Yeah, that's a serious list. I like the shout out to Floyd, one of the great fighters of all time. Just maybe not as the greatest by some other people's measure, but certainly one of the great fighters. Deserves all the credit. Like you said, a real professional, stayed in shape. Like there's a reason he could do these exhibitions to be schooling younger guys, sometimes bigger guys from other combat sports or what this and that. But like there's a reason. He just always kept himself in shape. So I guess so he could talk all that mess. But nice to see Evander Holyfield in there. Tough career he had. Jack Britton, a ridiculous schedule. Just an amazing year-to-year record that lasted into his 40s. He was just...
And even then, later on, many people judged him, and as I did too, that he could have got the decision over Valuev. Now, to even come close to beating... Valuev wasn't a technically gifted fighter, but Holyfield was ancient at that time, and he still nearly beat him. It's like, it's... If it had got the verdict that night, he'd have been a 5-time heavyweight champion. I mean, that's crazy. But I think just at listeners, we're doing it different this time because we're talking about the major entries, so they're all fairly guaranteed. Me, Scrap, and Random, I hope they don't mind me saying, we have discussed we will be going back to a nominate format more when the major fighters who are obvious guarantees by most people are in. I just thought I'd add that, just so listeners think, oh, they're doing it different this time. Yeah,
we probably still have a couple more shows where we might agree in the back beforehand, or just only do people we all agree on. But there's a lot of fighters that are just like, yeah, of course they're Hall of Famer. So these guys, it's just This is so much fun. This part, we'll get into the nitty gritty when it gets to some borderline guys. But
oh yeah, because
this is
I'm gonna be hard. I'm not gonna be easy on anyone. You know what I'm like. If I don't think someone should be in, I'll argue why not.
right. And I think when we get to that point, we're going to start thinking, okay, of the guys that aren't in the couple hundred we've already done, who are the most worthy? So maybe someone will get in a later round if we decide to go that deep. But it just depends how deep we go, to be honest. But yeah, this is a great list. This was very enjoyable. I don't know all of the fighters as well as others, but holy cow. The resumes of the guys I do know. I mean, you can't really be like, Emil Griffith, should he be in? Come on now. These guys all have their own legacy. We could do a show, if I studied at least, but you guys could do a show on any one of these guys. Do a whole show on them.
Someone once said to me, and Scrapbook will laugh at this, someone said to me, when they were having a discussion on top 10 welterweights of all time, and one guy, someone nominated Emil Griffith, someone who knew what they were talking about, and one of the people on the panel voting for great welterweights, which is why I always say, if you don't know it, just don't do the panel. If you're nominating or deciding people to go in Hall of Fame, if you've never heard of them or know absolutely random, honestly, you know way more than that guy. He said, well,
just real briefly, I'm sorry, BL. Hey, Scrap, I see you in the thing, but your box isn't highlighted and I can't do anything. Leave and come back and it should sort out.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
so, yeah,
sorry,
he actually said to me, Emil Griffith doesn't deserve to be in the top 10 because he hasn't really fought anybody. I mean, when he said that, I just thought, get that guy off that panel. What is that guy doing on that panel? Don't you know he fought Napoli's Monzon, Pere, Luis Manuel Rodriguez, Dick Tiger, Nino Benvenuti? I mean, the names go on forever. He obviously didn't know that.
A lot of those names are names that will come up in this show.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like, I mean, we're talking like there's so many greats in the history of this great sport. It's ridiculous. Like a proper justified Hall of Fame it's going to be really big. Yes, I still see Scrap in the studio. I mean, in the thing, but where our thing is highlighted, his isn't. Scrap, if you can hear me, back out of the studio and come back in. This is good.
Let me send him a message as well on WhatsApp.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, so I don't know if there's any of these guys I want to try and while you do that. Jeff Smith, really good shout out, very underrated, not really known. But he was fantastic and got a lot of praise from his contemporaries in a great and rich era. Maybe while you message him, maybe I'll pull up my list here. Or I'd like to actually do it while Scrap's in.
I've nearly messaged him.
Oh, he's back. Scrap, can you hear me?
All right. Cool stuff.
Hey, Scrapbook, can you hear us?
Yeah, I hear you guys. Can you hear me?
Oh, fantastic.
Oh, yeah, can you hear loud and clear?
Okay, great. So, Scrap, did you want to add in anything else onto this second slide before I pull up mine?
BO slide?
I have it in the wings whenever we're ready, but I don't want to just rush through any of these if you have more to add on some of BL's fighters.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, BL covered it. You gentlemen did a great job. I mean, when you look at Emil Griffith by himself was a phenomenal fighter, 3-time welterweight, 2-time middleweight champion. I mean, he set so many different criterias during the time in which he came. Do you know when he faced Benny Kipperett in 1962, he set a precedent. After he killed Benny Kipperett, they had changed the way boxing would now be viewed on television, number one. And number two, they added padding to the poles because Benny Kipperett, after the last punch that was thrown by Emil Griffith, he banged his head on the back of the pole. So they added cushion, which now they put advertisements on the padding on the pole. So a lot of contributions that Emil Griffith had made. When you look at Pete Herman, he was from Louisiana. Another good fighter, outstanding bantamweight champion. So many great fighters to choose from. So great list, BL, and I second everything that he said.
I'll add two more things on Emil Griffith thing. A lot of people don't realise. After Emil Griffith in ring, he tried going over to him when Perret were in corner before he got stretchered out, and he couldn't get to him. But then when Emil Griffith didn't realise how badly hurt he was, and when he found out he'd been hospitalised and he were in a semi-coma, Emil Griffith actually tried going to hospital, but he was barred by Benny Kid Perret's family from actually seeing him. And he received a lot of hate after that as well. Emil Griffith received a lot of hate campaign against him. But also the referee, what they call referee scrap again, I've lost it. Oh, but it actually Ruby Goldstein who refereed it.
Yeah, Ruby Goldstein was the referee. I actually spoke to Ruby Goldstein about that bout. And he told me a couple of things. I'm sorry, what was that?
I heard that he found it virtually impossible to get referee work after that fight because he didn't stop it quick enough.
Yeah, he did get some more work, but you didn't really hear a lot of him at that time. And then he retired. He said he couldn't do it anymore. He couldn't do it anymore.
Sad, really. Yeah.
Unbelievable. But he was a very good fighter himself, Ruby Goldstein.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, if you don't mind, I guess I'm going to pull mine up. Yes. Let's see. So,
I'm all eager to see random. See what great list you've come up with.
On a second, like this. I brought some modern guys in already. Too. Look at that. Some of these, to a casual listener, or viewer, some of these won't be as familiar. But starting on the top left, the great Ezra Charles, one less Hall of Fame win than Sugar Ray Robinson, who a great many people consider the GOAT. I'm not saying I do, but a great many do. I have number 3, which is miraculous in itself in all of history, gloved history. But so Ezra Charles, 20 wins over Hall of Famers. More than everyone except Sam Langford, Harry Greb, and Sugar Ray Robinson. That's crazy on its own.
Yeah.
Also, a really strong resume besides that. Also, a weight traveler who gave up, like people like, oh, he fought an old Joe Louis. Joe Louis had 30 pounds on him, and he wasn't that old, and he wasn't that out of shape. He was bigger, but he had a 30-pound disadvantage in that fight from what the commentary was saying. So he cleared some hurdles. Great fighter, great multi-weight fighter. Rocky Marciano, the Rock from Brockton. This dude was tough as nails, and he just totally committed to excellence for 8 years and bounced. So he had to go in. He was undefeated. Doesn't have as difficult a career opposition as others, but he won everything, and he did fight great fighters, and he didn't draw the color line, and he fought Hall of Famers across the color line. So Rocky definitely in. Young Strib over there, huge number of fights, lots of finishes, lots and lots of winning, crazy schedule, passed away young, sadly, but he did a lot. He fought some very important fighters along with a lot of different degrees of fighter, but a huge year-to-year record. Really important
and
fighter.
A huge weight mover.
Absolutely. Good point, BL. Then I've got Dave Holly, the loop-the-loop puncher, and one of the Philly kings of the 6 rounders in the lightweight bracket. Dave Holly, great fighter, should be in the Hall, isn't in the Hall of Fame, but I nominated him to get into our Hall of Fame, and he was actually on the ballot. He just didn't get in this last year. He should be on the ballot. So was young Peter Jackson, who we got in our first show. Then next to that, in the middle there, on top row, I've got Scrap. I think you might have. Well, actually, I'm not sure. I don't know if my display is messed up. But anyway, in the middle, I got Jimmy Slattery. Slats over here. Great fighter, busy schedule, great win-loss record. Fought some important guys. Did he hold the whole light heavyweight title or a piece of the title?
No,
I know he unified with Rosenblum, right? Or he lost the whole thing.
He held the NSAC title.
And then fought a rivalry with the great Slapsy Maxie Rosenblum.
Yeah.
Who we inaugurated in our first show. He made it in the first ballot. Not the first ballot. We didn't do a ballot, but the first batch. Then I got that's Tiger Flowers. Come on now. Tough schedule. Also a weight traveler. And I've seen in the papers where they were describing him as another black fighter who's gonna have to fight above his weight to get matches. But he also, great wins, an important guy in his time. Definitely worthy, in my opinion. Then Tommy Gibbons, great fighter, wasn't a champion, but it's the resume, folks. You look at who he fought and how he did against him. Holy crap, he's definitely in. Then Jack Dempsey, the Manasseh Mauler, not the original non-Paral Dempsey, who may well be one of the gentlemen who gets nominated eventually, but the second Jack Dempsey, the more famous one these days. And yeah, lots of knockouts. He went on a great run. He got less active at the height of his fame, but he still fought great fighters. And is worthy. Gene Tunney, great Gene Tunney, phenomenal win-loss percentage. Rivalry with the great Harry Greb, who all three of us consider the second greatest of all time. Then we got Fitz, three-weight champion, and beat really good competition to win those three fights. The light heavyweight one, he was past his prime. They would joke about him being older. And beat George Gardner in, I think that was 1903. 1903.
Yeah, Gardner was no joke. Very good fighter.
George Gardner, who gave the great Jack Root his first loss. I think they drew, and then he beat him in the second time they fought. But yeah, so I don't know if Gardner will come up, but Gardner was a really good fighter. And so Fitz, you know, like, so not all of his famous fights are his toughest fights. He fought some really good competition. And he was a pivotal figure also. And a businessman fighter. Sorry, but there's a train going by. Hold on a sec, guys. Okay, I'm going to speed it up. So I was like, I'm bringing the whole four kings. We got all four of them. I know you guys are going to want to talk about them. Marvelous Marvin. Got Ray Leonard, Duran, and Hearns. Then I slapped on James Toney, one of my favorite fighters to watch. Another weight traveler. Another of the great old men fighters, as you might put it. Competitive, far above his natural weight. I mean, he was 200 pounds in high school when he was a quarterback, so he cut a lot of weight to be fighting down at middleweight. But he still was fighting bigger guys than he was when he was in his youth. So, like, yeah, great fighter, and I just really love watching his technique. Very calm under fire. Then Carlos Monzon, great win-loss record, beat some great fighters. One of the great middleweights, he's in there. Great sort of long fighter, long lean frame, used it to the max. Bernard Hopkins, another of the great old man fighters of all time, among his other accomplishments and title accomplishments, another of the businessmen fighters as well, like who had demands. I liked him going back at Larry Merchant live. Larry was talking on the mic in the ring about a fight coming up. He said, well, we'll see what they offer. You know, this is a business. So if we count that toward like people like with Floyd, he's the businessman fighter. Dempsey was one of the greats in that regard. To me, Hopkins is another guy who, I mean, he started old and took for what he did. He's just one of the modern all-time greats. To me, like in the modern era, he's one of the very first names that comes to my mind. Yeah, and battling Levinsky, ridiculously tough career battling Levinsky had, and he has to go in. And his resume, BL, I don't know if you still have up the career video you did for him, but it goes on forever.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, he had near.
Once you start to recognize some of the names. Yeah. The last time I heard it, I'd learned more than the first time than when you debuted it, and I was just like, "This is madness." Then I had to add in Roy Jones Jr. Come on, man! What did you say, Scrap? They used to call him Captain Hook.
Yeah, Captain Hook. Yeah, that was one of his names.
I had never heard that, but I heard Scrap say it in one of our discussions. I was like, "Yeah, he's fun to watch and great in lots of different ways." Another of the very greatest modern fighters. And very popular and personality, and just a lot to enjoy by Roy Jones Jr. And his highlight reel is one of the most absurd and impressive that you can find on the internet. And then finally, Ted Kid Lewis, gigantic career, enormous weight traveler, one of the real all-time great weight travelers. To me, he's a top 10 all-time great of the ring. And I'm not sure about Scrap, but I think BL, he's in your top 10 still, right? Your latest?
Yes, he is just in my top 10. And he also rates as the greatest UK fighter of all time in my ratings.
Oh, big up, Andrew. Drew in the comments. He's actually promoting one of the boxing promotions or working with someone with a Bima. Because he's into Japanese, martial arts, combat sports. covers Ryzen. Ryzen just celebrated their 10th anniversary as a promotion. They do like the less restrictive rule set in Japan where you can kick the guy when he's down or the girl. They also have stomps and soccer kicks. So you really want to think about your position at all moments. It's very exciting, but he covers that and he's been doing some other stuff. Word up, Final Boss. So anyway, yeah, Ted Kid Lewis, just finished on him. This guy's career and some of the years he had, the busyness is insane.
Yeah, and Ted Kid Lewis is also another like young stribling who you highlighted. Ted Kid Lewis is one of boxing's great weight movers, came from around near flyweight. Actually, aside from the two-time welterweight title haul, he actually fought and won and challenged for titles all the way from pretty much featherweight to heavyweight. When he fought Carpentier for light heavyweight title, the European heavyweight title was actually on the line. And also at some at lower weights, he also fought for Commonwealth, British, European titles. So it's not just the two world titles he got across the multiple weights. He actually was, in contention for many lower level titles as well, showing that he was at that level as he went up through the weights. So,
right.
Yeah,
and he was a celebrity fighter. He was a celebrity fighter. Wasn't he hanging out with Charlie Chaplin?
Yes, he also has one at great fight series of all time against the boxing marvel himself, Jack Britton. So yeah, he was a great fighter, Ted Kid Lewis.
Yeah, there aren't too many rivalries ever that can really even be in a conversation with that. Like, there's like Sam Langford had a few that would be in that conversation, but we're talking, that's Sam Langford. There's a reason he's also a top 10 all-time great. And the all-time great in our list, the way we judge, the way we sort of judge these things. But yeah, I wanted to bring some modern guys in because I mostly researched the old school, but I do watch a lot of more modern guys fight. The old school stuff, I study it, but it's not as enjoyable without the sound and stuff. That's more an academic exercise. So these are some of my favorite modern guys to watch.
Every modern guy you've brought in is fully worthy to be there, without a shadow of a doubt. I added Holyfield and Floyd. You've added some more modern fighters in, and they're all worthy to be there. It's like I always say to people, you mentioned some people have been leaving comments. I always say to people, it's not my channel, so I'm not really going to go off on them. It's Random's channel. But all I'd say is if anyone has issue, then a live stream can be set up with me. And if you disagree, then we can discuss it. Rather than leaving silly comments, and I'll host.
I'll host so you don't have to have anyone's noise on your channel. I'll be happy to be a neutral host.
Yeah, I'll cremate them because we actually take time to learn about the fighters in the sport, and all of the fighters we're nominating. If people are leaving funny comments, I find it ridiculous because every fighter we have nominated is fully worthy to be in Hall of Fame. Take even Floyd, for example. A lot of people, oh, no. Let's face facts. You put Floyd's record and his accomplishments against anybody in the current top 10 pound for pound. I'm sorry, it's embarrassingly one-sided to Floyd. Simple as that.
Close. Not even close.
He knew his undisputed titles. He ain't beat De La Hoya's. He ain't beat fighters of that caliber. Okay, simple as that in a nutshell. Okay, and he hadn't won, world titles across 5 weights either. People say, oh, well, he's won undisputed. Floyd didn't. Yeah, Floyd didn't. But Floyd's resume is far superior to Inouye's in every way. So, yeah, it's a great list of fighters you've got there. He's strapped back now. Has he managed to jump back in?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now, Scrap. Go ahead and add to BL's slide. I know you've been having some connection troubles, but go for it, brother.
Yeah, I was going to say, I can't see what's going on in the chat. I never look at the chat that way. But they have to understand, whatever problem is in the chat, they have to understand we are going to be having several shows. So if there's a person they're looking for and they can't understand why he's not there, we just started the shows.
Yeah, and I think he was talking about comments in general. We haven't had any negative comments about fighters in our chat.
First ballot. So I don't understand what's happening there. Anyway, as far as the rest of the men that you have, random, fantastic. Roberto Duran, one of the hardest lightweight punches, along with Ike Williams in boxing history. Phenomenal lightweight. Marvelous Marvin Hagler, Sugar Ray Leonard, James Lights Out Tony, Roy Jones of modern era. Great fighters. Thomas the Hitman Hearns. I mean, these are men who has established themselves. That's why I always say you have to judge a man when his career is completely done. Because once his career is done, then you'll look at some of his opponents and see if they get into the Hall of Fame. You see what they do, and that will add to his resume. So these men have been proven already. So a lot of times we're going to be choosing guys who have fought 20, 30 years ago because at that point, they have been pretty much proven already. So we're still learning about the modern fighters. So you have to give us time. But as far as the men that you have, great choice, Random. Phenomenal job.
Yeah, I agree. Scrap, well said. Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Scrap. Yeah, and certain guys like Jimmy Slattery, he was a big star. He was acknowledged for his talents in his day. So, like, just because people don't know, or there's maybe been some baseball guy with that last name, or there's some reason that he's just unknown. That doesn't mean he wasn't extremely famous. I found one picture I love that I clipped from the newspaper that showed him at age 4 in his boxing gloves. Dad had him in boxing at age 4. I mean, you could say he was a prodigy. He was.
If I can mention on Slattery as well, a lot of people think of him as a light heavyweight, but as Scrapple, no. I don't know if you've seen it yourself, Random. You may have done, but Slattery was also a very highly rated middleweight contender and a very seasoned campaigner at middleweight. You know, this is even before he got the light heavyweight title. So,
yeah. And I'm pretty sure he's the one who started in high school. Like, he was boxing, he was having proper matches, very young, gaining experience as he grew in size. So I don't even know where he started, but he was a small dude at first because he was a kid. He was young.
Yeah, very excellent fighter, Jimmy Slattery. Yeah, one of the best light heavyweights at 1920s. You know, there with Loughran, not on their level in terms of resume, but he was one of the pinnacle light heavyweights with Delaney and Berlenbach, the historic assassin, and Rosenblum, Loughran. You know, Slattery were in that bunch as one of the best light heavyweights at 20s. So lost that.
BL.
Oh, go on, sorry.
Yeah, no, BL, I apologize. I wanted to say to you, Jimmy Slattery, the thing with him, he had his fights with Dave Shade out of California. And it was a big deal between him and Shade when they fought up there in Buffalo, because that's where he was from. But he was originally from Bridgeport. But he lived in Buffalo. He really put that town on the map. But his bouts with Dave Shade of California was something else. It was amazing during that time. Jimmy Slattery was a hell of a fighter.
Yeah, if we went in order, like, okay, who are the 10 most worthy, who in the next 10, and all, like, he would have come up, you know, maybe inside the top 100, maybe not even quite inside the top 100, but he is someone that I eventually plan to nominate. And so I kind of as I thought of certain guys, because I was like, Rocky's got to be in there, right? The Rock from Brockton. And I'm like, Brockton, Marvelous Marvin, he's got to be in there. And I was like, well, I'm bringing the whole 4 Kings. They're not on your lists. Yeah, hopefully, you know. So, like, you know, because to make the graphics, I had to get the list. So I was like, great. So I got all of those guys. I'm bringing Tony. I'm bringing B-Hop. Because I don't necessarily enjoy watching most of Hopkins' fights, but that isn't how I rate fighters. I love his resume and his ability and his accomplishment.
Yeah, very, very good point you made there. I fully endorse your thinking, okay, because too many people go on the shiny bodywork, okay, and that go less on the actual accomplishments and the resume. That's why people, you know, certain people get in Hall of Fame, but someone like Jeff Clark doesn't, because someone will think of the shiny. And I agree, to a lot of boxing fans out there, probably not the people in your live chat, Random, because they're a knowledgeable bunch, but a lot of boxing fans, they go on the aesthetics. They don't go on the, you know, accountant kind of aspect of it. Right, who did they actually fight? Yeah, they look fantastic, but who did they actually fight? Which is why when we get to shows, when we're nominating fighters who are more on the periphery, could they get in or couldn't they? It's going to be interesting, you know, how we go there and how it plays out for some fighters. But I think your list is a perfect blend of old and new. It's also a perfect blend. You've got great punchers, great long-time champions, great weight movers. I think your list is a well thought out list, actually. And you know, I think all of us lists have been great lists. You know, they're all worthy Hall of Famers, every single one of them.
Oh, thanks, man. Hey, and I just wanted to add, like, relating back to young Peter Jackson, Sim Tompkins, real name. Uh, he, he was an inside fighter. He wasn't an exciting fighter. He got criticized in the California press for slowing down fights to his advantage, and like, because he would work to get inside, from what I gather, from what I've read, and then
Yeah,
punish.
because he had a
But
lot of stamina. He could fight a lot of rounds. He'd often try and get people late. He'd wear them down. Yeah.
Right. And so people would say, "Oh, well, that's boring. That's not flashy." It's like it's like a tank. What works? What actually works and can be repeated? And he stopped the great Sam Langford, our number one fighter of all time. He stopped Sam Langford in 1906. The
And
same
Barbados
year,
World Cup.
just months
And Jack
apart
O'Brien.
just months apart from Langford going the distance with the great Jack Johnson, one of the greatest heavyweights of all time. Who was in his youth at the time, like in part of his prime, and it's like absolutely incredible. So like young Peter Jackson, partly it was very gratifying to hear you bring him up in the first show, because that's righteous and that's overdue. He was nominated, he didn't get in. I have to assume it was him and not the later welterweight of I believe the 30s. There was another young Peter Jackson, but I don't think.
Oh yeah, the lightweight young Peter. No, it wasn't him. It was Sim Tompkins. Yeah, it was the Baltimore Demon.
But he's worthy. He was a really, really good fighter, and he was the main training partner for one of the very greatest of all time, Joe Gans. So, he was a serious guy. He was treated as such too. It's just that not everyone gets the same title opportunities for a variety of reasons, especially when there are barely any weight classes and barely any belts. And that's how you can have guys who just never win a title or never win an undisputed title, and they're great fighters because of the resume, who they fought.
He went the distance with Jack Johnson. A lot of people don't realize with fighters like young Peter Jackson is when you are a regular sparring partner to Joe Gans, the one thing you learn to do is survive, to spoil, to avoid big shots. Because when you're sparring someone like Gans, who's so accurate and pinpoint, clever, setting you up, young Peter Jackson was a very experienced fighter. He knew how to protect himself. He knew how to survive long fights. He's a very experienced fighter. And this is something I always say, when you look at Barry McGuigan in Hall of Fame, Barry McGuigan, ended Eusebio Pedrosa's reign, that super long featherweight reign. But really, was Barry McGuigan more experienced as a fighter than young Peter Jackson? I don't think so in any way, shape, or form. Peter Jackson fought too many different fighters at top level who are now Hall of Famers or were
different kind of
champions at the
level
time,
of opposition
across multiple weights. He learned to fight big guys. He learned to fight small guys. He could fight the small, fast guys. He learned to fight the heavier, more powerful, big guys. Very experienced fighter. And I think that goes underrated on a lot of fighters, how experienced some of those guys were.
Right, and there were cleaner records. Like Jimmy Slattery has a very clean record year to year and a busy schedule. But so there are guys in the past who were great in their own right, who have sort of like maybe a slightly busier version or deeper version of a modern, clean resume that we celebrate. Sorry about. I must apologize for like the 8 trains that have gone by in the last 10 minutes. There's Amtrak and the MBTA down there. There's four lines. Anyway, so some guys, and then I wanted to put Monzon in there. Not a pleasant character, but just judging on the ring, yeah, man, he had the career, and he had a wildly successful career, and finished on that wonderful run that included some really good competition.
Yeah, can I just add on Monzon? I've always said it. He's one of those rare fighters who's been a 2-time undisputed champion without losing his belts, because one of his belts went and then he reunified against Valdez. So actually, in one unbeaten title run of 15 title fights for 14 defenses, one of belts went for a number of defenses, but he was a 2-time undisputed champion in one unbeaten title run. Also, courtesy of fact of after his 90, he went on an 80-fight unbeaten run after suffering 3 defeats in his first early fights. 80-fight unbeaten run over multi-years, and that 80-fight unbeaten run, included all his fights. So he's unbeaten against champions, unbeaten against Hall of Famers, unbeaten against rated fighters. 80-fight unbeaten run, and at the time set a record middleweight title defenses at 14. Carlos Monzon, and a lot of people, some people criticize Monzon for the draws, But all I'd say to that is to anyone out there who would criticise someone like Monzon for draws, you have to learn how the South American scoring rules went at the time. I remember reading articles years ago. I can't remember them exactly, but it was something about if a fighter fought over a 6-rounder or an 8-rounder, they had to win by a certain margin for it to be called a win, or it'd be called a draw, or something like that. I can't remember exactly. But how they scored fights down there was very different
that's a good
to how they
point.
scored them in America.
Right. And some of these others, guys, I must apologize. My battery's about to die in probably like 3 minutes. But just briefly, did want to say, yeah, because like Dave Hawley and other fighters fought in an era where it's whole fight judging. You don't have, they're not counting rounds you won. They might note them, but it's whole fight judging. And also, so like the conditions are different over the history. But my battery is shot. I'm gonna have to end the show, guys. Thank you so much for joining me.
Could we just get Scrap's last point in before we go off?
Yes, please. Definitely.
Yeah, real quick. I just want to say thanks so much, everyone. Real quick, I wanted to share a 2-second story. You mentioned Joplin Ghost, Jeff Clark. Well, they say he was from Joplin, Missouri. Well, there was a fighter by the name of Patterson, Leo Patterson. He fought in the American Expeditionary Forces. He fought a fighter by the name of Bushy Graham. Well, he wanted to fight Jeff Clark, and he was just a lightweight because he was originally from Missouri. Joplin, Missouri.
Oh, I'm so sorry, guys, that my battery suddenly goes.
But you guys go. Take care. I'll see you guys next time.
Okay, we'll be back soon, folks. Thank you so much, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Take care.